I have 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here.
Commissioner Rue?
Here.
Commissioner Hunt?
Here.
Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Vice Chairman Cannon?
Here.
Chairman Russo?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from the July 9th, 2026 meeting. Any changes, any discussion on the minutes? If not, can I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Hunt. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Commissioner Sharp. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes have been approved. Swearing into the witnesses. All right, on to regular business. The first and only item on the agenda is ZBA 281-2026, and we'll have staff read the case into the record.
This is a request to hold a public hearing on the request of Steve Kerr of TWM Incorporated on behalf of Global One Properties Incorporated to amend a previously approved major variance from the City of Peoria Unified Development Code Section 4.3.6 Building Envelope Standards to alter the conditions of the approval in a Class C1 commercial district, general commercial district, for the property located at 2520 North Sterling Avenue, parcel identification number 14312521010 in Peoria, Illinois. So, again, this request is to amend the previously approved conditions. One condition of that request. This proposal involves a reestablishment of a vacant convenience store with gas pumps. The applicant received a variance to rebuild an existing non-conforming fuel pump canopy at the property on May 8th, 2025. According to the application, fuel delivery will be prohibited due to the existing variance approval condition that requires driveways to be located a minimum of 50 feet from an intersecting curb line and 5 feet from a side property line. The applicants provided, I guess this is the property in question, the zoning, again, C1, surrounded by C1 in almost every direction except the west, which is R3. The aerial photo of the existing site, and then the applicants provided an updated site plan which shows the truck turnaround for the fuel delivery, which would only be possible if the existing curb cut is kept there close to the corner. What we found from the applicant is that the fuel truck cannot back up, and it can only deliver fuel when it's on private property. So this proposal would facilitate the delivery of fuel to the site. With that, for the Development Review Board recommendation, we recommend approval of the condition removal request while retaining the additional conditions. For the findings, as far as whether or not it can yield a reasonable return, staff believes the property cannot yield a reasonable return without removal of the stated condition, since fuel delivery is required to establish the site. As far as the plight of the owners due to unique circumstances, staff believes that this property is unique as a corner lot with front yards on all frontages, and also it's the prior establishment as a gas station. And then number 3, as far as will it alter the essential character of the locality, staff believes the proposal will not alter this essential character due to the proposed use being a reestablishment of an existing gas station. And then I'll just restate the conditions. Condition 1, a transitional buffer yard shall be required on the eastern property line adjacent to the existing residential uses per UDC Section 8.2.9. Number 2, all signs shall conform to the current signage requirements per UDC Section 8.3. Number 3, all changes must meet the life safety requirements of the current code in regards to safety features. Any new tanks or underground storage will need to be submitted for a review before final approval. And again, these are conditions when the proposal was back in front of us in 2025, but they're a restatement because of the process. Number 4, underground fuel storage tanks and fuel dispensing operations and permits are regulated by the Office of the State Fire Marshal. There are distance and lot line requirements that must be followed. Those requirements are outlined in the 2018 International Fire Code, sections 2303, 2304, as well as the International Building Code, section 406.7.2. The owner will need to consult with the State Fire Marshal's office and address any potential issues prior to moving forward with any project. Number 5, the curb ramp at the corner has not been approved by Public Works. A PROWAG compliant plan needs to be submitted for review per discussions with the engineer. Number 6, the new drive approach shall restrict access to only right turns. It is too close to the intersection to safely allow left turns. It is especially concerning for a semi-tanker, as can be seen by the turning movement as displayed on the screen. Number 7, the owner shall be required to provide a barrier to prevent use of this entrance by the general public. It can be opened whenever the gas delivery truck needs to use it, and then should be closed again. I've got a few more. The applicant's application is provided in the packet for your needs. And then these are the photos from the original case. There has been permits issued for the site. Construction is ongoing. And then this is the kind of one of the final pieces for the site. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Please.
Just to be clear, the site plan doesn't reflect that condition placed on right turns. So they would be ideally going south on Sterling, entering Newman Parkway, going left into the entrance, and they would be restricted to only right turns from that drive.
Correct. That's the request.
Okay.
And that condition is a public works condition dealing with the approach and traffic circulation.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much. The petitioner can please step to the podium. Good afternoon on this rainy Thursday. Please state your name and address for the record.
Steve Kerr, 5703 North Woodlawn Court, Peoria. Sorry to bring you guys out in the rain because I didn't know the rules about a fuel truck. So a fuel truck came to our attention when they put the fuel in to ballast the tank. He filled the tank from the public right away, but they're not allowed to fuel or stop on a public road, and they're not allowed to back up when they got a full fuel tank. So that made us have to come back and ask for this additional entrance, which we didn't think we needed. But as far as the conditions, the first 5 conditions are already, I believe, in play, and they're already taken care of in an approved set of plan. 5 is not. We're working on 5 with Public Works. 6, we have talked to Public Works about, and we're going to try to add signage and adjust the entrance to make that work. Item 7, we've talked to Public Works about. I'm not sure how we can provide a temporary gate or temporary how to temporarily close this off without creating a safety issue for somebody coming down Sterling and seeing the entrance and wanting to turn in and then hitting some kind of a gate. I mean, we can't chain it or cable it. It would have to be something that would try to be visible. And I've discussed it with Public Works, and I don't know that anybody has a great plan or a great idea of how to restrict this entrance when it's 10 feet off of the edge of the pavement. And so, it's an existing entrance that's there. It's been there for 40 years. when it was a gas station, the public used it for, I don't know if 40 years is accurate, but it's been there a long time. So we're just asking that it get approved without condition 7. And then we'll work with Public Works on 5 and 6 to try to get the other conditions met.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how often are you expecting fuel deliveries?
I believe they get fuel deliveries once every 2 to 3 weeks or so. So it's not often.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Are there specific times of the day for the fuel deliveries?
We're hearing aids, so I can't hear.
Specific times of day for the fuel delivery?
I do not know, but just, I'm assuming it's earlier in the morning when there's less traffic at the business, because this and many other gas stations, when there's a truck in there fueling the tanks, it's hard to move around the actual gas station. So I'm assuming they're doing it early in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I think my question would be for, I guess, staff. Are there any other, as far as this condition number 7, are there any other gas stations within the city that have this requirement for a fence? Or they've all been maybe grandfathered in because they're not a new gas station, but there's plenty of gas stations on corners.
Correct. A lot of those existing gas stations may be non-conforming with respect to their approaches as they are, standing today. But whenever a site comes in for a legislative process, the conditions are open for trying to garner as much compliance as possible. So that's when the administration tries to provide that to the site to bring it as close as possible. Certainly, the staff and the applicant were unaware of the fuel delivery requirements, so.
Yeah, because there's a lot of gas stations on corners that are very similar to this situation. Not that they would be built today, but there are many, many gas stations on corners that have entrances closer and bigger than this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak on this matter? Anything else from the city, Josh?
I don't have anything else unless the Public Works Department has any statements for the condition, since it's, the approaches are in their frame of regulation.
Any further questions of the city from any commissioners? Okay.
Someone from Public Works
Go ahead.
here?
Commissioner Lyons, if you wouldn't speak into the microphone, please. Thank
Is
you.
someone from Public Works here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
I just open the floor to you if you have any additional comments or statements for the condition. You're welcome to provide those.
I'm Julie Schmidt with Public Works. I don't really have anything additional to add to this. We do recognize that this is a non-conforming use of the driveway because we do want them 50 feet away from intersections, but we also recognize that this is needed because of the fuel delivery. So we're not opposed to the driveway itself. We're just trying to restrict things to make it safer and try to not create a problem with that. But yeah, we're not objecting to the entrance.
Would there be an objection to the entrance without the temporary barrier in between gas deliveries?
We would like to restrict the entrance to only the fuel truck and not the general public. But we also recognize that if there's a safety issue with doing that, we don't want to create a safety problem.
Thank you. Any other questions for Public Works? Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Any other questions from the commissioners? All right, in that case, we will close the matter and go into deliberations. Any comments, thoughts?
I think had we known this in 2025, we probably would have addressed it then to the petitioner's point. So I see no reason not to make this work. And I agree. I think the temporary gate, as a person who puts gas in a car, that would confuse me. If there was an entrance, sometimes open, but not sometimes closed. So.
Okay. Any other comments?
This is a part of town that I believe, when you've got a small business, and we want to try to help them with regard to their business, and I think it would be a boon to that area to have additional gas station, and I'm similar to the commissioner. I'm going to support trying to make this work.
Is there any thoughts we heard the petitioner discuss conditions 1 through 6 not being an issue, but there being concerns on condition 7. Is there any thoughts on granting this with or without condition 7?
It seems that Public Works is already aware and the petitioner is already working with them. I don't think it would be an issue.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I would probably just defer to the experts with regard to that and mitigating any safety issues that might arise from having it or not having it.
Okay. All right, well, with that, we'll do the findings of fact. This is a request for a major variance, so the following 3 criteria must be true. Number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in that zoning district. True or false, Commissioner Lyons?
True.
Commissioner Sharp?
True.
Commissioner Cannon?
True.
Commissioner Hunt?
True.
Commissioner Rue?
True.
And I also find it true. Number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. True or false, Commissioner Lyons?
True.
Commissioner Sharp?
True.
Commissioner Cannon?
True.
Commissioner Hunt?
True.
Commissioner Rue?
True.
I also find it true. Number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality or be injurious to the public or other property or properties. True or false, Commissioner Lyons?
True.
Commissioner Sharp?
True.
Commissioner Cannon?
True.
Commissioner Hunt?
True.
Commissioner Rue?
True.
And I also find it to be true. So we have all 3 criteria have been found to be true. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
And do you make the motion to approve with the conditions?
With the conditions that they're working with Public Works. Are we going to make a motion to approve without the conditions?
With the conditions? With all 7 of them?
I'm going to, well, go ahead.
I'm just making sure we're clear for the record what the motion is. So take a second.
Well,
So
then
motion to approve with,
I will not make the motion then.
you're not going to make a motion, you're withdrawing the motion?
Yes, I withdraw what I just said.
Okay, all right. So the motion's been withdrawn by Commissioner Sharp. Do we have anybody who wishes to make a motion?
I make a motion, we do it with conditions 1 through 6 and waive condition 7.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the variance with conditions 1 through 6 made by Commissioner Lyons. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Hunt. Give me 1 second here. Okay. We have a motion approved with conditions 1 through 6. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes.
Commissioner Rue?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cannon?
Yes.
Chairman Russo?
Yes.
Chairman, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, best of luck to you. All right, that's the last item of regular business. Do any citizens wish to address the commission at this time? Seeing and hearing none, that takes us then to the training session for members of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you.
Whatever is best for you.
We're gonna keep this session a little bit shorter, and then we're gonna have consistent shorter sessions as we go, just so we can absorb and then have time to reflect. And if you have any questions, then you can reach out to me or planning and zoning staff, which if it's a legal question, they're gonna reach out to me anyway. So, my email is available. I can get you a card too. Reach out to me anytime. Most of you have been here for a while, so you know what a variance is. It's a grant of relief from the Unified Development Code as it stands. When we grant variances, we're basically making pockets within the code. I think that's important because every time a decision is made granting a variance, you're saying the code doesn't apply, and then all around the city, there's little pockets of people having different uses of land. In totality, and over time, you'll see that the code doesn't make sense after a while, because if you approve just about every variance, then anyone can do whatever they want, and then we're in a position where the code doesn't even make sense to apply. And then there has to be a revisit to what the code actually says. Staff's concern is perhaps like the standards aren't being considered the way that they're written, which there are often times when we'll see you might not see it, but a variance might be granted and then after the fact, staff is dealing with the complaints. So for example, in January, there was a fence that we approved was closer to the sidewalk. We've gotten numerous complaints for that property that the dogs that live at that property have been going towards the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is not usable because they're aggressive. Other issues involved with the dogs, but that don't have to deal with the actual fence being moved closer to the sidewalk, but that's an example of the effect of granting a variance without knowing the back end of it.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, are we supposed to wait till the end? Okay. So for that example
If you would,
there, it might be
if you wouldn't mind speaking into the microphone for the record, thank you.
All right, thank you. For that example there, how close did it end up being to the sidewalk, the fence?
I think it had from my memory, it was right up against the sidewalk.
Okay.
It was already there before though, and they just wanted a different fence. So I mean,
I guess my argument is a lot of people do it, or they have it and then they ask for forgiveness after the fact, rather than permission, which isn't really, from, I guess, my perspective, but yours could be a little bit different, that ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. So just because you should have asked before you did it.
is this the one that was on like Peoria?
It was Ember, I think.
Ember, yeah, like Ember and Peoria. So that house had I mean, I looked back at however far I could go back in Google Earth, and there was always a fence there. So the reason they came to us is because they were putting a new one up. So I think in that situation, the fence had been there before the code said it couldn't be. And so they were asking to put back something new. They did make some modifications, but it wasn't how it met the sidewalk. It was always, that fence was always up against the sidewalk. So there are nuances, and I think that's why we're all here. Because if you buy a house or you look at a house that has a fence that is where it's at, you don't think, hey, if I upgrade this fence or if I make it out of a different material, I'm going to have to shrink my yard. Because people don't know that. Or they probably would just leave their ugly fence in place. So I think what we did as a commission was look at the history of that fence in its existence.
While I understand your perspective, I still think the effect is important here because now that sidewalk is not usable. So even though they had those conditions beforehand and they might be replacing a fence, then that's your opportunity to say now you have to comply with the code.
That's good to know. Let's go on to, what are some other examples where we've,
So the next session, we're gonna have more examples. I don't want this to come off as like I'm the teacher and I'm trying to, put a ruler on your hand, right? I'm just trying to show you the effect, like the back end of what happened to try to help you understand like your decisions make a difference. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if a property owner doesn't like your decision, they could go to circuit and appeal it. And the city would deal with that in the back end. That's your quasi-judicial body. You have the authority to make these decisions, and your decisions are final unless the property owner wants to move forward with them, right?
The city also has the opportunity to go.
They do, but we're not technically always in.
I understand, but I mean, that same,
Of suing our own commissions. If there was something that was again, I'm not gonna say never, because if a decision was made that was completely against what the city's interests are, it could be a circumstance that the city manager or my boss, Patrick Hayes, might move it forward, but that is their determination.
sure.
I did want to speak on major variations today. The good news is you just went through the factors, so I don't have to list them out again. Give me 1 second to pull up my computer because it just closed down. So the 3 factors were major variations. Inside the UDC, there's also considerations that the commission can't consider, so that expands on those factors. For number 1, which is the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in that zoning district. You can't consider the purpose of the variation is not based primarily upon the decision to increase financial gain. That's within the code. A lot of times you will see that the applications ask for that is the effect of the application. It's for financial gain. You might not know it because they're not presenting it that way, and the city's perspective will never have that. They're not going to take that perspective when Josh or Carolyn presents. They're just putting the facts, whether it meets the code or not, and the DRB's recommendation. They're not going through the analysis of whether or not what the property owner is actually seeking or what their motives are.
So let's expand on that, because and I appreciate you bringing this up. I mean, these are the portions we wanted to go through with the training and actually going through and looking at each of the criteria and how courts have interpreted, so we kind of know where are the nuances, where do we need to fall on things. And so I guess this would be a good question for this training here would be explain the variance we just granted, explain how the purpose of that variance wasn't for financial gain, because to me, that's exactly what the purpose of the variance was, is so they could deliver gas and sell gas. So if you could kind of explain like the nuances and how is that not financial gain versus some other ones that maybe are financial gain?
Most of them are.
Okay.
Like, I'm just being candid with you, but again, you're the commissioner, so you have to view it in what information is presented to you. No one's asking for most of the time it's asking for forgiveness, right? Like they did something or they had something and they're trying to seek approval, like the rubber stamp on what they did or what they had. Most of them will be from my perspective, but then again, that's for you to determine when you're hearing the evidence from staff and mostly from the petitioner. A lot of times I will see, and I'll point this out as like just a little carve out for this training, is that I've seen people come in and talk about, for example, this person's a good neighbor. That was a lot of the testimony. Or they're a great neighbor, they should be allowed to do this. That's not actually a consideration when it comes to a hardship, and I understand well, they're a good person, no one really cares. No one came and testified against it. However, just because you're a good neighbor doesn't mean that you necessarily get a variance.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I feel like for the rest of the commissioners, I'm not speaking for you guys necessarily to jump in if you disagree, but I think whether it's in this training or maybe a follow-up, something in writing, I think it'd be helpful just to have like a list of situations where let's say a court of law has found that something was, the property could not yield a reasonable return without that variance versus when it's the opposite, that in fact it could have yielded a reasonable return. I think part of the struggle is where's the fine line between when something can and cannot yield a reasonable return, because if you read it literally, especially with this fact to consider section A here, most of the times if you're reading it literally, every single one of those properties can yield a reasonable return without the variance. So we're never going to grant a variance, but clearly that's not what the city wants. Even the city staff today, for instance, was in favor of the variance. So I think we're just trying to make sure we do things the right way. And I think, and again, it may not be today's training, but I think it would be helpful to actually go through and have real life examples of where it's fallen on the side of you could yield a reasonable return without the variance. In other words, you should deny the variance versus you really can't yield a reasonable return. Today's situation, if you look at just without the fact to consider, if you look at just can it yield a reasonable return, the answer was no, because they can't deliver gas. But then when you look at the fact to consider and it says, well, it can't be based on financial gain, well, that's what the purpose of it was. So I think it'd be helpful if we could get some specifics and examples of of where things fall on the line. So if there's other thoughts, guys, but I think that would be helpful for all of us, right?
Agree.
You can't hear me?
No, I can't hear her.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Now you're red.
I swear that wasn't on purpose. That was not on purpose. Usually green means go, so
Yeah, I thought so too. Oh, okay.
I
What
can hear you,
what
but
I
I'm
just
sorry. I'm
said.
sorry. Yeah.
We're going to stipulate to what you
Yeah.
said earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
When it, oh no, that's okay. I just want to address the case law comment. So with variances, because they run with the land generally, there is very little case law out there expanding on it. But for the one that you did mention, there is a few cases out there. There was one out of in 2018, and I could get you the full details, but I just wrote it down here as like a cliff note because I know you're an attorney, so you might find this useful. Kimball Dawson LLC versus the City of Chicago in 2018. That was an appellate decision, underscoring that the ZBA correctly denies a variance if the hardship is self-created.
Okay.
An example here is commencing construction without a valid permit. And the additional part of that analysis was it was not due to the unique physical conditions of the property. I'm happy to look and find cases that kind of fall into some of these categories to help your decisions. While I don't think there's going to be one on every single criteria listed, I do think that there are general cases out there regarding variances. So I'm happy to look and provide it to you if you find that useful and it helps in your decision making.
What do you guys think? That'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, one of the main questions we had was about reasonable return. So how are we defining that, and where do we draw the line?
What's reasonable?
Yeah.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I want to emphasize, like, you are the decision makers as a whole, right? So that is your determination. I'd be shocked if I did find case law that was very pinpointed to every single issue in regards to a variance. Like when I looked before on the temporal limitations on variance, I didn't find anything, because there probably has been very little out there. That doesn't mean you can't do it, because your authority to impose conditions is very broad under the UDC, but maybe it's not been challenged or it just hasn't reached that level, but the concept of a variance seems to go against imposing a time limit. If you understand what I'm saying, like a variance runs with the land, so now you're imposing a time limit. But I do think that should be considered as well, because not every property is used the same way for the immediate future, right? For example, I'm actually thinking of one right now. The business that was on the corner of War and University. Yeah. You granted a sign that allowed them to put that banner on the side of their property with the size limitations. We can't regulate what it says. He could put whatever he wants on there for the end of time.
And whoever owns it later.
And whoever owns it later. So that's what I mean by impact of granting a variance. I know that this commission does often consider that each parcel is unique and tries to view it as a parcel. When we do that, this commission still sets precedent. So even though you're viewing it as, hey, the bleachers property is one time we're allowing this sign to exist, that means the next person that comes up is gonna be like, hey, you approved it for them, I'm also a commercial property, why don't I get one? And then you're put in a position where you already did it before. And although you don't have to grant it, it just opens the door.
And that's kind of how we arrived at the situation in the previous meeting, is because a variance was granted, and then there was some follow-up, and basically it made its way around the neighborhood.
I actually think it was the other way. There was one that was denied, and that person was mad.
Okay.
And then went and found every corner lot that had a fence and brought it.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was issued conditionally. So the variance was approved conditionally to go above the maximum 3 foot tall. It was like, I think, a 4 foot or a 4.5 foot allowance, where the applicant wanted to do a 6 foot tall fence because he assumed it was in his backyard, even though it was a corner lot and had adjacent properties that faced each side property, each side street. So that one was, the variance was approved. It wasn't approved to the applicant's liking of what they wanted. It was lower. And then we received a bunch of information about other properties within the neighborhood that also had front yard fences that were out of compliance. So that was the kind of multiple months of fence requests.
I do have just wanted to say something about the public comment section, and when you say that, I mean, that's what neighbors are gonna do, right? And I know that sometimes it might be perceived that we vote in accordance with the popular opinion, but at least for me personally, and I can't speak for everybody else's train of thought here, we can't control what they say, and how we vote, it doesn't always, because I understand that it stays with it forever, right? But you can't explain that to the general public and say, none of how much you like or dislike your neighbor doesn't matter in this situation. But it is nice to know if there's a huge outrage or, massive support for one way or the other. But ultimately, I think, at least for most, I would say all of us that's not our deciding factor, is what they're saying, but we can't. It's just, think if you watch it on a tape and you see all these people come up in support of something and the things they say aren't really applicable to what we're deciding, it might look like they're together, but they're not,
I'll piggyback on that. I guess my perspective on, I don't necessarily say because they're a good neighbor, but the way I interpret that is they're the ones that are impacted by property values based on whatever that variance was. And, that's the neighbors that are most directly impacted by it, the ones that live in that area. And I interpret it a little bit as, okay, they're aware that this person might have a higher fence, they're willing to live with it, so it isn't so much a popularity, but a willingness to support that variance, that's beyond the public policy.
Yeah, and please don't take that comment as an attack. Like, that's just how me personally and like when staff is talking to me about the decisions, what they view. So it could be that there are other considerations that you might not share with us, right? The one that I can think of off the top of my head that happened recently was the parking pad that they put in the front of their yard. And there were a whole bunch of people that came in and talked about how that person was a great neighbor, right? From my perspective, that's all the testimony that I heard. He's a great neighbor. He should be allowed
Oh,
to
no,
do
there was
this.
some that didn't want it in the mix.
I don't recall.
There was one for sure.
Okay. There weren't many, if there were, because most of what I heard was that that's a great person. He'll do anything for you, right? So from our perspective, it's like, well, all these people came and then you made a decision that it's okay. They just did that. They just put the parking lot. They didn't check with Public Works. They didn't pull a permit. They didn't, they just poured it. And then they said that was, that forgiveness, please grant my variance. But the reason they did that, if you look in the packet, there was a few photos out there. They have a trailer hitch that was parked, that's not supposed to be parked on the street. They needed somewhere to park it. I'm not saying everyone's intent is ill. They obviously have a purpose of like asking for something. But the fact that they could have gotten written up by the city for parking that trailer in the street was the motivation there to pour that parking pad.
Or he maybe didn't want it on the street.
I mean, he would have got ticketed from the city.
I think a lot of times when I've, in my recollection of cases where they've put an adjacent expansion of their driveway, and it's basically a parking space, I almost always, if there's a denial by the staff, will go out and look at like the area, and not only just that house, but also what's in that neighborhood. And invariably, within 3 or 4 blocks, there's going to be somebody who has a parking space in their front adjacent to their driveway that somehow got approved. That's so in that, on those situations, a lot of times I'll sit there and go, well, how can we, if there's somebody else in the neighborhood that's already benefited from that. Now, I don't recall at the trailer hitch one if there really was any exceptions in the nearby neighborhood, but oftentimes I think you'll find there are other exceptions out there. So
Yeah.
that's part of my decision making.
Yeah, and a lot of times, the city doesn't do active enforcement in terms of, the code officers do have their areas that they monitor, and so there might be something they might notice, but a lot of times enforcement is through Peoria Cares. So if a neighbor has an issue with it, that's when staff would follow up and be like, well, this wasn't, you did this, or it was there without compliance, you have to go through the variance process. When it comes to, just want to comment, Commissioner Lyons, on what you said about the neighbors showing up and just the general comment, right? That they're showing support. Those are the neighbors that are then existing. Variances run with the land, right? So like, just because they showed up here now for X reason doesn't mean that the neighborhood's going to switch. People don't usually stay in the house. They buy and sell quite frequently in their lifetime. So contact Ryan. But that, I think that's to my point where it's like that testimony, although maybe a consideration for you, is not an actual consideration in the UDC.
That's just part of it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a nuance, as Commissioner.
Well, I think the part of it too is, I mean, to jump on what Lon was saying, it can matter, I think, in some small capacity that the neighbors that are currently there are in support of it, because any neighbors who come in the future will know that it's there already. It's not going to be hidden from them. So it's important to have current support, because future support, if somebody doesn't want to buy a house next to a house that has a parking pad in their front yard, they're going to see it from the day that they look at the neighboring house. So, I mean, that aspect, knowing that the people who live in the vicinity that have, you know, the time to take off in the afternoon on a Thursday to come down here and tell us that they like the way it looks, they've looked at it, they think it's great. I mean, it matters, you know, I mean, and not that it's going to sway necessarily, it's not going to be the deciding factor in a decision, but even though it's running with the land and you're saying that future neighbors might not like it, well, they don't have to be future neighbors, you know, there's other places to live.
I do think that the consideration is just not immediate neighbors. It's injuries to the public as a whole is the consideration. So although, yes, and another point for that trailer was that they would have to get onto the sidewalk to get onto the parking pad. If you looked at the schematics, that was a concern for me for a city perspective. And I think it was mentioned in the testimony as well, that the sidewalk would deteriorate over time. Because of how they entered. There was a gap between their main parking lot and then the pad, which now we're allowing forever because the city doesn't have a sidewalk split program as of a couple years ago. It was a 50-50, but it hasn't existed for a couple years.
So after the last zoning meeting, training that we had, I've thought a lot about the purpose of the ZBA, and there's a recommendation that city staff provides within every packet and every case. And the consensus that I took away is that the ZBA should follow the recommendation of staff every time, because that's what the code says, and that's how it's being interpreted. So my question is just about the ZBA itself, and what's the intent if that's always the outcome? And
So
that we're always going to follow staff's opinion?
I don't agree with that statement. Here's why, because you're still here because of all of your capacities individually outside of being here, right? You have an interest that led you to the ZBA or your professions, and that's why you're here. So there is consideration that you do just because staff makes a recommendation doesn't necessarily, although we would love it if you agreed with us all the time, right? Because that's the whole purpose. That's not necessarily what you have to do, and you haven't in the past. So what I'm asking you to do is apply the factors as they're listed. And I think the case law might help, at least I know for Commissioner Russo, it will. I'll try to shorten it to make it more readable for people that are not interested in the law, as much as, you know, us. Just want like the short blurb. And I'm not trying to make like any kind of comment on interest, but like generally speaking, people don't want to read a full case. They just want like what's going on. Maybe that will help you with guiding you to make decisions. And then we could go from there. I don't think I have to go through all the three factors because you read them all the time and you know them, but I am going to send you the considerations within the UDC because I do think those are important to apply to those factors.
I think that would be helpful. I'd like to see that too.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate the training today, and thank you in advance for the additional information you'll be providing us. Is there any other questions right now? All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you listening.
Anything else for the good of the order today? If not, anybody wish to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Commissioner Hunt, seconded by by Commissioner Cannon. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
See ya. Oh, for like, for Civic Plus? Like yeah. Yeah, once you actually like get into doing it, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'm still adjusting from using Word, but I still have like the original template on Word, and I just copy and paste everything over. So. Where's the laptop bag at? Is it over there?
It should be on the side over